She was just a hired hand, forced to sleep in a barn and stay silent while the ranch owner Ray Langford abused her and others. He ruled with fear and money, hiding his dirty business behind fake smiles and connections in the county. But Savannah found a way to strike where he didn't expect it, and with an unexpected ally, she brought his crimes to light. But just listen to how shocking the turn of this drama was, and why justice, in the end, prevailed. "That all you got, girl?" drawled Ray Langford, a rancher in dusty boots, leaning against a willow tree by the riverbank. He watched with a smirk the slender figure in the murky water of the Brazos River, the only person on the ranch who did the dirty work faster than 3 men combined. And that person was a woman. Savannah Gray, a 20-year-old girl with a face scorched by the Texas sun, looked up. Water streamed from her short-cropped hair. She didn't hide, didn't get angry. She simply straightened up slowly in the water, as if Ray's words didn't touch her at all. "Is there no more work for today?" she asked calmly, getting out onto the bank and wringing out her shirt. The muscles on her back moved tensely under the thin fabric, but she carried herself not like a temptress, but like a soldier weary of war. Ray spat into the grass. "You stink of horses and sweat. And yet you act like you're above all of us. You're not from around here. What exactly are you looking for on my ranch?" Savannah remained silent. Behind her was a long trail of a homeless girl, deceived, rejected, exiled. She didn't answer because there was no question in his voice, only the poisonous pleasure of demeaning her. Just like yesterday. Just like every morning before this. At the Double L Ranch, women weren't hired. But Langford made an exception, not out of kindness, but out of boredom. He thought she wouldn't last 2 weeks. A month passed. "You eat my food, live under my roof, and yet you look at me as if the world owes me something, not you." Ray came closer, his gaze crawling over her like a slug. "My mama would say you were born of sin, Gray. Just like all of yours." He meant her mother, a prostitute in Border Town. And he knew it would sting. But Savannah just pulled her shirt on. Silently. And in her silence there was more contempt than in 100 shouts. He spat at her feet. "If you don't learn to dance to my tune, you won't last long here. This is Texas, girl, not a ballet class. When the sun leans west, the heat blows away the last strength, and grain rots in the barn, all the ranchers go to the bar or home. But not her." Savannah stayed in the corral with the colt. His name was Banjo Skittish, a wildling no one could break. In the month she'd been here, he was her only friend. They were both wild, both distrustful of people, both knew how to endure pain in silence. I ask you to like and subscribe to the channel, so you will help me in motivation to make such great stories for you, and I will see that you like them. Enjoy watching, everyone." She whispered something to him, slowly stroking his neck. And in that moment, for the first time all day, something resembling a smile appeared on her face. That evening, in the common bunkhouse for the workers, the heat only intensified. The men drank cheap whiskey, shot dice, and swore. When Savannah walked in, a silence fell. She was in men's clothes, not out of style, but out of necessity. Here, a woman's body was not a virtue, but a vulnerability. "Where you been, witch?" someone shouted from a corner. Savannah knew the voice. Bart Hale, Langford's foreman. The one who had once cornered her in the hayloft until she jabbed him in the thigh with a pitchfork. Since then, he hated her. "I was looking after Banjo," she replied calmly, taking her portion of stew. Bart stood up. "You think he listens to you? He's a horse, you fool." He came right up to her. "Or maybe a stallion is closer to you than men? Maybe you're one of them?" Laughter. Savannah squeezed the spoon in her hand. She could have hit him. Wanted to. But not now. "Step away," she said quietly. "And if I don't?" And then a third person intervened. A boy named Lyndon. Young, redhead, with a permanent bruise under his eye. He wasn't her friend, but it seemed he knew pain. "Leave her alone, Bart. She's one of us." Silence. Bart didn't reply. He only sneered and walked away. But in his gaze was a promise, "We'll meet again." That night, lying on the hard cot, Savannah stared at the ceiling. Her heart wasn't beating fast. It was ticking like a clock before a storm. Evenly. Precisely. She knew what was coming. They wouldn't leave her in peace. Neither Langford, nor his dogs. They didn't like that she survived. That she didn't beg for mercy. That she didn't plead to be one of the women. Here, only the broken or the strong survive. She was a third option. And inside her, anger was already being born. The morning began with a shout. "Savannah!" She flinched and rushed out of the bunkhouse. The heat was already blazing in the yard, dust flew into her eyes, and in the middle of the corral stood Langford. Next to him, Bart, with a hand on his hip, was smirking like a jackal by a corpse. In the middle of the enclosure lay the colt. Banjo. His belly rose and fell quickly, as if he were suffocating. "What did you do to him?" Savannah darted towards the colt, but Ray stopped her with a yank on her shoulder. "He broke the fence. Broke his own leg. We don't have the money to treat useless horses." "He's not useless." "No? Then go and pick him up. Or kill him yourself." She knelt. Banjo was trembling, pain and fear in his eyes. Savannah stroked his forehead. He hadn't broken the fence. They had. To punish her. To break her only attachment. Ray held out a Winchester to her. The barrel pointed down. "Your choice, girl. We don't keep the weak." She took the rifle. Stood up. Looked Langford in the eye. "I won't kill him." "Then I will." Savannah sharply lifted the Winchester, broke it over her knee, and threw it in the dust. "You won't touch him." Silence. For a second no one moved. Then Ray hit her. Hard. She fell face first into the dirt. Her lip was split. Dust in her eyes. He leaned down to her. "You don't work here anymore. Get out by sunset. And don't let me see your face here again. You understand?" She didn't answer. She only got up. And went back to Banjo. Ray didn't interfere, he knew that the pain and dirt would do the rest for him. Savannah dragged the colt into the shade. Water. A clean cloth. That's all she had. She didn't know what to do, she didn't have a vet's knowledge. But she had fury. More than fear. Lyndon came closer. He held a flask in his hand. "You really want to stay?" "He will live," she said quietly. "What about you?" She looked at him. And for the first time, something terrifying appeared in her gaze. A silent promise. "I'm not leaving. Not until they feel what it's like to be afraid." That night she didn't leave. She knew it would cost her a lot. Maybe everything. But she stayed. Banjo survived. His leg was swollen, but not broken. The next morning he stood up. And in 3 days, he was walking. Limping. But alive. Langford didn't return to the conversation. He pretended she didn't exist. But this was worse. Because he was waiting for the moment. A week later, a buyer arrived, the town mayor and his 3 assistants. They needed transportation to haul gold. Langford offered his wagons and promised to show them the best stock. And he brought out her. "Here she is," he said to the mayor. "The most stubborn bitch on the whole ranch. But she listens to horses. Maybe because she's a wild animal herself." Laughter. Savannah held her ground. She didn't lower her head. But inside, everything was clenching. Show them what you can do. Show them how to break stallions. He knew that among the horses he had chosen was one dangerous. An old warhorse, stupid and aggressive. It had wounded riders more than once. She understood this when she saw its eyes. But behind her were people. The town. Money. A chance to survive or be humiliated forever. She stepped into the corral. The horses were skittish. The men held their breath. Langford whispered to someone. "She'll break in front of everyone. And if not, I'll take her down myself." But she didn't break. She waited, not making a single move. Only her breathing. And her eyes. She looked at the stallion, the same way she had looked at Banjo that night. 3 minutes passed. 4. And suddenly the stallion froze. Then he walked over. Slowly. He shook his mane, and nudged her palm with his nose. Applause. The mayor was delighted. The guests were amazed. And Langford stood like a stone. Something shifted in his eyes. That evening he came into her bunkhouse. Alone. The door was unlocked. He thought she was scared. That she was grateful. That he was her salvation now. But he was wrong. You know, I changed my mind. You'll stay. I was too hard on you. She looked up. You thought I'd fall to my knees, didn't you? He took a step forward. You don't understand, girl. I gave you a chance. And you can give me what you owe me. He held out his hand. And then Savannah pulled a knife. A small, leather-handled one, from her boot. If you touch me, I'll cut your throat, Ray Langford. And you know what? Everyone will think it's your own fault. And they'll be right. He froze. Silence. And he left. But this was not the end. It was the beginning of a war. The news spread quickly. Ray Langford backed down from a girl. It was impossible. Unthinkable. He was the man who held the county by the throat. He punished, broke, humiliated. No one dared to contradict him. But now he was silent. And that was even more frightening than his fist. Savannah felt it. In every look the Wranglers gave her. In every dinner that was brought to her bunkhouse, and each time she didn't touch it. She knew this was the calm before the storm. On the third day, Langford summoned everyone to the stable. Except her. According to him, it was about new order. About discipline. And about traitors who corrupt the herd. When Lyndon returned, he was pale. They're going to set you up. With little things. You'll get tripped up, framed, someone will say you were stealing. Langford won't do it head on. He'll wait until you stumble and then finish you off. She nodded. What about you? Lyndon looked away. I'm with you, but I'm not a hero, Savannah. I just want to get out of this cursed place alive. In the morning, someone left a dead chicken on the doorstep of her bunkhouse. In the evening, a bucket of grain disappeared. Then, her harness was cut, and a horse nearly carried her off a cliff. Langford was silent. But his men were acting. Savannah didn't sleep at night. She slept with Banjo, with a knife under her hand. She looked at the dawn, like a battle that was getting closer. You're still here, girl, she heard one day. Looks like you want to play with the grown-ups. Ray stood by the corral, leaning against a post. A cigar in his hand, ice in his eyes. I know who you are. You're not a cowboy. You're an orphan. Street scum. You think you found a family among horses? No. They're meat. And you're dust under my feet. I built this ranch. I am the law. Savannah was silent. And when I'm done with you, not even a dog will remember your name. She took a step closer. Quietly, confidently. Too late, Ray. They already remember it. The next morning, the mayor returned. He wanted to buy more wagons and offered an escort through Comanche territory. Langford agreed, even though he knew it was dangerous. We'll send the best. And her, he said and pointed at Savannah. It was a trap. The Comanches would kill her, or her own men would. Or maybe they would just leave her in the desert. Savannah understood. But she agreed. She was ready. The journey through the pass took 3 days. The team of 6 was led by Bart, Langford's favorite. He didn't hide that he wanted an accident. He hinted that Savannah was the weak link. On the second day, they found a mutilated coyote carcass nailed to a tree. On its hide, a Comanche sign. That's a warning, Lyndon whispered. We're on their land. Bart smirked. Let them come. We have bait. He looked at Savannah. That night, the attack began. A howl came from the cliffs. An arrow pierced the wagon wheel. The horses whinnied. The men rushed to their weapons. Savannah grabbed a Winchester, covered a flank. Bart disappeared. He wasn't among the shooters. And only then did she understand he had left with the horses. He had abandoned them. 2 were wounded. 1 dead. They were trapped, surrounded, without transport. But Savannah didn't falter. She led the men to a cliff, fighting her way through a gorge, as if she knew every trail. She had grown up in these lands. These rocks were closer to her than people were. They made it out. 1 man short. but alive. And when they returned, the mayor shook her hand. You saved my men. That would be worth money. But I don't want to pay Langford. I want to pay you. She didn't say anything. Only nodded. And behind her, Bart stood, his face whiter than chalk. He knew what awaited him. Savannah returned to her bunkhouse. And in the morning she came out to face Langford. You wanted me to die. I survived. You wanted me to be afraid. I'm standing before you. He sneered. And now what, girl? Going to sue? She pulled a document from beneath her shirt. Paper with the mayor's signature. This is a contract. For supplies. Not to you. To me. And if you step 1 inch into my part of the corral, you'll answer to the law. Your law. He lunged forward, but stopped. People were watching. Lyndon stood in the back. The coachman. The old man from the kitchen. Even deaf Jeremy. All of them, they were looking at her. Not at him. And in that moment, he understood he had lost. The ranch changed. Savannah no longer slept on straw. Didn't clean the stalls. Didn't sharpen her knife to keep from falling asleep with fear. Now she had her own lean-to, 2 helpers, and her name on a contract. She negotiated with butchers and even once with the sheriff himself. And something in his eyes said he knew who the real power was here now. But peace was an illusion. Ray Langford didn't leave. He was waiting. He lived in his big house on the hill, surrounded only by silence. His men avoided his gaze, muttered behind his back. Savannah knew he hadn't forgiven. He was just waiting for the moment. And it came. When a federal agent came to town. An ordinary man in a dusty coat, but with a warrant, a signature from Austin, and sharp eyes. He was looking for traces of missing workers from other farms. He suspected illegal human trafficking. And Langford, as it turned out, was at the center of the suspicions. Savannah was sitting on the porch when the agent came up to her. You were with Langford long? Long enough to know where he buried the truth. The next day, Langford's ranch was searched. They found Bart's diary, hidden under a floorboard, where he mentioned buying people, debts, threats, and even disappearances. Savannah saw Ray standing in front of the stable, surrounded by agents. Not in shackles. He was calm. He knew the law. He had never signed anything himself. His men did everything. And most were either dead or gone. You lost, he said, walking past. You have no proof. Only rumors and fear. And that's not enough. Savannah watched him go. He was right. Almost. That evening she went to the river again. Where it had all begun. Where he first called out to her, like a predator in the jungle, that all you got, girl? Only now everything was different. She walked to the water. Took off her boots. Sat on a rock. And in that moment, Lyndon sat down beside her. You knew this wouldn't end, didn't you? She nodded. He pulled out an old, faded photograph. A few men. Horses. One of them with a scar on his cheek. Bart. My brother. He disappeared after he refused to hide bodies for Ray. I never knew where to look for him. Until I found this in the ledger. He handed it to her. The last entry, Lyndon knows. Get rid of him. With that, Savannah went back to the agent. This time, a case was officially opened. On the day of his arrest, Langford stood in the middle of the corral. His fingers clenched into fists. His face stone. Savannah walked out to him, as one walks to a beast no longer feared. He spat into the dust. You think you won? You'll have your own rats. Your own dirty deeds. You won't last. She didn't answer. She only turned and walked away. And when he tried to shout, you're still just a girl, dirt under my feet. The horse she'd taken from the stable a year ago, the very one that had almost thrown her from the cliff, whinnied and reared up, as if protecting her. Even the animals knew who the boss was now. A year later. The ranch was no longer called a nest of fear. It had become a sanctuary. Drifters, orphans, women from the slums all found work and a place here. They called her by her name. Not in a whisper. But with respect. And when she rode past the bunkhouse where she had once slept, a young boy looked up and asked, "Is it true that you once challenged Ray Langford?" Savannah squinted. "No, boy. He once challenged me.